It's a start in the red, but it's not a huge big disappointment. We're falling in line with what the SGX Nifty was indicating. Yes, there are the other Asian markets or other counterparts which have fallen a lot more. It's fine. 10,750 doesn't really snap a range for us. We're well within that mark, and that's okay. And even for the broader markets, while yes, the breadth is favoring the declines by a huge margin, on an index level, we're just meagerly soft. So down about 0.3% and down less than 0.5% for the mid-cap index for the day. But what are the individual movers like? Take it across to Vivek and find out exactly that. Vivek?
Well, that's right. As you rightly mentioned, Indian markets seem to have had a very measured response to the kind of weakness that we are seeing across all the emerging markets. In fact, if you're looking at the Asian handover, it was extremely weak when we got into trade. But, some of the key stocks, or in fact, the 8 stocks that matter for us, the top 4 for us are going to be the pharma pack. The rebound from the lows continue. Glenmark Pharma, Strides Pharma, 2 separate pieces of news coming in for these 2 companies. Glenmark as well as Strides getting in a tentative approval from the US FDA for the various ANDAs that they had filed. Torrent Pharma, Ajanta Pharma, remember, continues to rebound quite sharply from the lows that it had seen post the disastrous results. And if you're talking about, the footwear stocks, today they continue to see the positive momentum that started yesterday. Bata, Relaxo, even Liberty Shoes, and the other ones doing quite well in the session. Of course, on the other side, the 2 stocks that have been quite weak. Indocount, yesterday the stock went up almost 14%. So today, seeing a routine bout of profit booking. And all OMCs today are actually quite negative in the session. The fact remains that there seems to be some amount of possibility of an excise cut, etc. that could come in, that could hurt the marketing margins. And which is why, having a look at the OMCs, you see that quite weak in the session today.
Yeah, they've really been reversing their trend after that big bout of move coming in yesterday. So let's chat about these stocks. What's active? What have the funds been selling? What is it that they have been buying in the month gone by? Kaustubh Belapurkar from Morningstar joins in to talk about exactly that. Kaustubh, hi, morning. Welcome to the show. Firstly, have to talk about pharmaceuticals, considering, that really has been the big story of late. Needless to say, funds must be lapping up these names, but is it across the board or is it a more selective approach?
Hi, Aisha. So, I think it's been an interesting trend where pharma, we've seen in the past month or so, we've seen a fair bit of buying, and that's largely across a couple of counters, but we haven't seen any selling in some of the smaller counters either. Okay. So counters like Sun has seen a fair bit of buying, Dr. Reddy's, Lupin, these are the 3 large names that pop up, and quite a few of the managers are buying into this. So it's not a one-off trade by a few managers, but a large part of the street is looking at that positively, given the developments that have been happening on this space.
No, but do you think that the trade that was largely dominated by IT coming back when we spoke last month has kind of dispersed? Is there more buying momentum you're seeing across the board?
So I think technology also continues as a buy, and in fact these are the 2 sectors which were ignored, so to speak, for a long time, and now they're making a strong comeback. So technology, again, we've seen buying into Infosys, HCL Tech, that's a new name that's sort of popping up, Emphasis, on the mid-cap side. So really, that's the other space where managers are seeing, a fair bit of, activity and growth coming back, and they're eager to get back into the space too.
Okay, ITC is part of the list, one of the large buys. Interesting.
Yeah, so ITC, I think it's more, as a defensive play that, you just want to prop up your portfolio in times where, you've seen market volatility, the stocks really, on a time basis, there has been a bit of correction. So you don't mind buying into a, solid stock like an ITC. So it's not a very large quantum. It does pop up because it's been a large holding in fund portfolios, but yeah, it's a more defensive play as part of your portfolio.
Kaustubh, within IT though, again, is this buying selective in nature? Is it restricted to a TCS, a Tata, Elxsi, Infy, or is it more spread across the sector?
I think it's been selective, and it'll continue to remain so. For instance, we're not seeing too much buying into a Wipro. TCS, we did witness some buying, but now I think that trade-off again has happened from a TCS to an Infy. Infy still remains the most popular, technology stock that managers are buying. HCL Tech is a new name that's really propped up just over this last month. We've seen some selling in select counters, but that's more of a profit booking, like a Cient, where we've seen a sharp run up in that stock price, and you want to just take some money off. But largely, I think it's limited to the top, sort of few names.
Interestingly, not too many financials, no, among the top 5?
Yes, but the trend which we've been seeing over the last quarter, where financials were they had fallen off, there was not much interest. I think that's come back to a certain extent. So you're still seeing HDFC Limited as one of the top picks. Some of the private banks have, I wouldn't say large buying, but there is a bit of buying. But the other interesting bit is that some of the NBFCs, your Bajaj Finance, your Ram Transport, have also started witnessing some buying. So I think HFCs, private banks, and NBFCs, that's generally the play that's happening. PSUs not so much, except for SBI.
I'm curious to understand what's happening with the mid and the small cap universe. Up until now, we've been discussing largely blue chip sectors, because what we've seen this month is some sense of stability return. But are you seeing that in fund action, or are funds still witnessing redemption pressure in the broader market schemes, and are they still selling out in those stocks?
So what's really happening is, I think managers have largely concentrated towards the larger sort of cap stocks. On the mid cap side, it's been selective. So there've been a bunch of IPOs or sort of demerger that's happened there. They've gotten into some of those stocks, and given where we're in that transition period where the regulators also mandated them to kind of move their portfolios in line with the mandates, they're actually selling out some of the underperforming stocks. So we can see certain stocks where they've been holding for a while. Stocks haven't really performed as they expect. So the likes of a Crystal or Repco Home Finance, the stocks over the last years not really gone anywhere. They're getting out of out of some of those stocks.
Interesting. I'm just scanning through the list of the top mid and small cap buys, and I see the likes of an Indostar, Emphasis, Orient Electric, Voltas. Is the consumption theme at play largely over here?
Absolutely. I think that's definitely one of the plays, and that's not just in the mid-cap space. Even the consumption theme on the auto and the auto anchors, you can clearly see. So Maruti, like we heard the gentleman say, that's one strong buy. That's
Maruti figuring in the top 5 buy list is like, we've resigned to our fate there.
That's right. But generally, I mean, it's not just Maruti. You'll see a Tata Motors. You've seen quite a few of these names coming up on the auto side also. I think that's another trend that we're seeing of managers getting into some of this stocks.
Metals has been an underperformer in the last month or two. Have you seen any fund changes there, or are people just sticking by with their positions?
Some marginal buying, a couple of stocks. Tata Steel seen some buying, Vedanta seen some buying, but nothing much beyond that. But there hasn't been any profit booking or selling either in these counters. So I think you're seeing some dips on the metal counters, and they have gone and bought in some of these.
Where's
stocks.
the major offloading happening?
Major offloading, there was one large sell which is by one fund house, which is in Power Grid. So Power Grid was actually the largest sale last month, which is one fund manager kind of who's been holding it for a very long time, made a reasonable amount of money, is gotten out. Beyond that, you've seen Interglobe Aviation stock. I mean, obviously it's going through a set of challenges. We've seen some money being sold off there, and some profit booking in the likes of Kotak Mahindra Bank and Pidilite Industries. I think these are where we've seen a fair bit of selling.
Any mid-cap segments? I mean, we continue to talk about a DMart, for instance. I'm sure it's not got a very heavy fund concentration, but within consumption and the broader trend of the urban consumer or the aspiring Indian, what are the stocks which are seeing buying?
So something we've witnessed is actually the sort of luxury of the hotel stocks. Maybe not so much last month, but over this year we've seen. So we obviously saw Lemon Tree's IPO, which got subscribed. Indian hotels, so we've seen a fair bit of buying on that. I think that's a segment. Indians are traveling more and more, taking those vacations. I think that's one of the consumption themes that is playing out pretty well.
Okay. I'm looking at ICICI Bank still being one of the major holdings among the top 5. Is a call of there being more upside from here, given the clarity that just came by from the board yesterday?
So I think with ICICI, what this is, this has been an old sort of holding that, so we haven't seen managers add too much, maybe actually pull out some money from ICICI Bank. So over the last few months, we haven't seen too much addition in ICICI Bank. So managers have kind of used that wait and watch approach with the counters where we've seen some of this negative news or action that was coming across.
What about PSUs, SBI?
SBI continues to be being bought. The only PSU bank. We see PNB, there's still some marginal selling. The others are largely flattish.
I have to ask you about Axis and ICICI Bank in particular. Lots is happening, and I know you wouldn't have data for maybe yesterday, but what's the position like for both these?
So ICICI is, like I was saying, a fairly large holding in managers' portfolio, so they will take time to evaluate really what's happening. Axis by itself wasn't a very large conviction buy in managers' portfolio, so it's a much more smaller holding. So again, not much selling on that, but we don't see any fresh buying either on that.
And Reliance remains as is, or is there some profit taking now that the stock is an all-time high?
Reliance is again kind of steady ship right now. We're not seeing too much activity on that counter.
Interesting. L&T, what's happening there? Because yesterday I think we had Ajay Srivastava talking about L&T and ITC both being turnaround stories. So it's interesting to see, you know, the exposure that both these stocks have among fund portfolios.
Correct. So L&T again, I think it's a position that managers built up through the last year or so. But this year we've not seen too much action on that stock in terms of manager increases.
All right, Kaustubh, we'll leave it at that. Thanks very much for taking out the time. Thanks very much for stopping by in our studios.
Thank you.
Okay, all that you needed to know about fund churn in the markets, Kaustubh Belapurkar summed that up for you over the last 1 month, highlighting the big buys and the big sells coming in from fund houses.